opinions of what happened.
Mike realizes that he had, for lack of a more appropriate phrase, a mental glitch, and that everything at one time just came down the wrong way. You know, boxing is so situational. You're talking about 1 hour, one specific hour, on one specific day where anything could go right, and conversely, anything could go wrong. Man trains 10, 12, 14 weeks. I don't think any of us get in shape in 7 weeks like Chuck Wepner, but I like to train. I like to train 12 or 13 weeks for a fight of that magnitude. And what you're doing 6 days a week is putting your body through an unreasonably grueling test. You pay people 2, 3 men a day to try and take your head off. You pay these men to try and destroy you physically, and yet your mind and your body and your emotion, everything is involved in this process. And somewhere during the course of that time, now you throw in the press and the scrutiny. So now you have to be perfect on this 1 hour of this one day, and couple that with the scrutiny of a world title fight, magnify that with the fact that it's a heavyweight championship, and now magnify it with the fact that it's Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield. And something obviously went wrong that day, and I talked to Mike about it, and he's still not even sure why it went wrong. And people, you know, say, well, he went out without the mouthpiece, he did A, he did B. 1,000 fighters I could bring here that have gone out without their mouthpiece because the trainer also panics in the corner sometimes, and he forgets to do his job.
Can you give an opinion regarding Mike's character?
Mike's character is solid. You don't see a lot of people around Mike from the boxing game because Mike's not a real open person. Mike and I hit a friendship off a very, very long time ago. Up until the time he was incarcerated way back when, I had access to Mike at all times, always allowed me and the people I was with, was always extremely respectful and gracious to me, over gracious sometimes to the point it scared me, but he's just a regular guy, and we connected. We understood one another, we liked one another, and subsequent to him being released, a lot of different people came around Mike. A lot of different influences came around Mike, a lot of different managerial team. His promoter was the same, but different, I like to say Klingons, because a lot of people were just around Mike to try and see what they could get. I don't think they really cared for Mike, and when things go bad, they disappear. And subsequent to all of this, Mike Tyson has gone out of his way to show that he's changed, to show that he's trying to correct his wrongs. He's changed his promotional team, he's changed his managerial team, and a lot of those people who were bad influence are no longer anywhere to be seen. So I have talked to Mike, and he has expressed the difficulty that he had coping with what he did, and that it'll never happen again.
And these are changes that you've noticed in Mike over the past year at least?
I was just at his house. He called to have me, invite me up to his birthday party in his Connecticut mansion, and it'd been a lot of years since we got together, as I said, but it was just like the first day. Our friendship took up like the first day we started a friendship back in '86, and I expect things to stay that way, and not just till the end of his career. My career is now behind me, but I think for the rest of our lives, I'll always be Mike Tyson's friend. I respect him and I admire him, but I also like him.
What is your opinion of Mike on the issue of honesty?
Mike's actually brutally honest sometimes. You shouldn't ask him a question you're not sure you want the answer to, because he'll tell you straight. I don't think Mike is one of those open people who likes to talk about everything, but he's very honest. With me, he's told me everything. There have been countless times back in the 70s I heard rumors, and I would go to his training camp in Atlantic City or wherever it was, in Vegas, and get access to Mike, because he always allowed that. And I said, Mike, you know, I got to ask you, this is what I hear. He said, no, this is the story. Whatever you hear, I know what you hear. This is the story. So he's always been straightforward with me.
What is your opinion of Mike from a standpoint of integrity?
Well, he's always been honest with me. His integrity with me has been, been beyond reproach. He has never ever lied to me. He has never ever said something to me he didn't do, or anything that would lead me to believe that he wasn't stand up, as I call it.
Do you believe that Mike exhibits proper responsibility, particularly in the area of boxing?
Mike Tyson is probably more of a fan of boxing than myself, and I thought I was a pretty good fan. He loves the sport, he loves the game, he loves the participants throughout history that were involved. He knows more about the game than I do. He does more reading about it, more research. I'm inundated with so much stuff present day that I kind of try and get away from it a little bit. It just, after a while, it gets me a little saturated. I think his respect for the sport and admiration of the sport is great, but I think sometimes he doesn't know how to totally express verbally what it is we go through that people do not understand, and I think that's the only difficult part he has with it.
Bobby, you have been and still are and probably will continue to be part of the boxing industry, particularly in New Jersey. With that in mind, would you urge this board to issue a license to Mike Tyson? Do you have any reservation in your mind about doing anything like that?
I have absolutely no reservation about the fact that Mike is remorseful. That I know for a fact. I know for a fact that Mike Tyson is not anywhere near as bad as all these people say. He made a mistake. I know that Mike Tyson has changed considerably. I can see it. I'm back in his life where people went out of their way to cut me out. I wrote to him 6 or 7, maybe 8 times while he was away. None of those letters reached him for whatever reason. I gave letters to people at Don King Productions asking the police for it. None of those letters reached him. Mike Tyson has gone out of his way to cut out the evil in his life. I fought for 18 years as a pro. I won 3 world titles. I retired with a record of 44-8. I never had Mike Tyson's talent. I never made Mike Tyson's money. But what I did was I maintained a good, solid amount of integrity in the business. Prior to me winning my first world title, I had some legal problems. I had some other problems after my dad committed suicide. And it took some real hard inward soul searching to sit down and correct myself. I believe Mike is doing just that. Subsequent to my troubles, I went on to win 3 world titles and leave behind an admirable legacy in the sport of boxing. I would urge this commission, not just for Mike Tyson, but for the sport of boxing itself. Mike Tyson, I believe, should have the opportunity, and if he's forced out of boxing for any more time, another year, I don't believe he'll be able to recapture what was once, and I think right now he can, and I think he deserves the right to try and see where he could fit on the all-time list of great fighters, because certainly he is one of them.
Okay, thank you, Bobby. I have no further questions.
Mr. Chair, you know Mr. Tyson for 12 years, is that correct?
That's correct.
Would it be fair to say that you're close friends with Mr. Tyson?
I would consider within the business very close friends. For a while, as I said, for many years, people tried to keep us apart. Once he got out of incarceration, there were people went out of their way to keep me away from him, keep my letters away from him, and keep us apart. And you know, so there's been some time off. But if you see us now, I don't believe you'll see any other fighters on this dais.
You've maintained that relationship with him over the years, a good relationship.
Yeah, a very good relationship.
Is it fair to say that you want to see Mr. Tyson receive a license from this board today?
I think it's fair, not just out of friendship. I think it's the right thing to do. It's not just a matter of me wanting to see it from a personal standpoint. I think it's the correct thing to do, or I wouldn't be here.
When you testified about a boxer will sometimes deliberately foul another boxer to make a point. Could you explain what you meant by that?
Well, I had a fight, my second pro fight. Coincidentally, I knocked the guy's mouthpiece out and he bit me. He bit me in the shoulder. So I hit him with an elbow. The referee said, watch the elbow, and I showed him the teeth marks on my shoulder. And so he warned the other guy. But, you know, sometimes if you allow a man to continually foul you, the only thing he's going to understand is a little bit of that back. People say you don't fight fire with fire, you fight it with water. Water doesn't always work in the ring. If he hits me low and I don't hit him back, somewhere along the way he's going to figure he can get away with it, that there's some weakness there.
So that's a strategy that you can employ?
It's not a strategy, it's a reaction if it's repeated. If it's something done to you repeatedly, a man can only take so much. He's a man before he's a fighter or a professional. He can only take so much of what he feels to be an intentional abuse of himself.
Now, you testified as to your opinion as to Mr. Tyson's character and reputation,
Correct.
His honesty, integrity, and responsibility. What, in formulating that opinion, did you give any weight to what happened in the Holyfield fight?
I reiterate that what happened in the Holyfield fight I found to be reprehensible. I thought clearly, and I refer back to another fight when we saw Lennox Lewis was fighting Oliver McCall, and he started crying. He snapped, and his snap reduced him to tears. Maybe that's how he expressed his rage. I don't know, but he lost in the ring. There was that mental block of some kind. Mike, a piece of the street came out of him. I've seen far worse things done in street fights that were natural to some people, including my own personal security team. But, you know, I don't condone it. I never would condone it. I would like to think, you know, I talk about a zone. A fighter gets into a zone, he gets into almost a tunnel. And the only thing in that tunnel is destroying his opponent, because that's what his opponent is trying to do to him. And I have said many times, if I hit a man in a world title fight with everything hanging in the balance, second place is last place, my life, my future, my finances, everything is laying on the line, if I hit him and his eye fell out of his head, I would eat it before he got it back. Now,
those incidents in formulating your opinion as to his character?
well, personally, I was a little closer to a lot of the actual material of the trial, although I didn't get to see the witness the trial because it wasn't on TV like OJ. I personally don't believe Mike Tyson raped that woman. That is my own personal belief based on information that I had access to, based on some of the testimony that I was able to read, transcripts of the court stuff. I know Mike. I've talked to Mike. I've talked to Mike 1,000 times about a lot of things. And Mike told me straight away, back then, he didn't do it. There were rumors about 1,000 different things that I've asked Mike about, good and bad. And when he did them, he said, yeah, Bobby, I did that. Well, no, Bobby, I did. I don't think that that particular crime has any relevance today because he paid his fine there. He paid his dues there. He did his time. He paid his debt. And I believe that that's behind him. I don't believe that that is relevant for the boxing industry or for his license reapplication.
We don't have any further questions. Hold 1 second. Sure. You mentioned that you were a commentator for Showtime at the present time.
That's correct.
Do you know if Showtime is in any negotiations with Mr. Tyson at the present time?
I do not. I don't know what Mike's doing. Actually, quite honestly, his business, I have never been involved with Mike's business. I testified at a civil trial with Kevin Rooney, went up to New York, spent the night. I mean, I paid for my own stuff. He didn't even pay for my, he didn't buy me lunch. And I didn't ask him to. I went there because I thought I was doing the right thing. Kevin Rooney was trying to extort money out of a fighter, finding a new way to cheat a fighter out of money. And we know for years, because the fighter is an undereducated individual, especially in sports, that they're taking advantage more than anyone alive. And it's, we've been the common prey. Let's put it that way.
We don't have anything further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're going to take a 1 minute break. The reporter has to change the tape.
Okay. We're going to do Monica. Yeah.
I'll take another. Oh, I know. Yeah, I know. That's what. Oh, yeah.
Yes. You ready? All these exhibits, whatever you want. Yes. Yes. There's no problem. I'm here. Looking good. No problem. Looking good. Yeah, I'll go over all the documents with you, names, spellings, statements, whatever you need. Because we have, we have a witness list and exhibit list. I'll give you all of this. Okay. Okay. Tony? Okay. Well, actually, we should file an...
They're asking to speak up.
you want everyone to speak up?
Speak up. Not you. You were okay.
Me?
Yeah, speak up.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, okay. They want to ask. They want to
Here it is. I got it.
Which I'm pretty sure they're probably giving them grants or something. I don't think they're giving that to $10,000 or something. Yeah.
That's fine.
No, you're not in it. It's just the film that shows that you can go back there for 1 year.
Oh, the videotape?
We didn't do that. The record is about it.
All right. Oh, sure, yeah.
Now, I've spoken to the engineer, and I'm going to try to turn through the copy of the
Okay.
videotape, so I can use,
That's
I have my little...
Yeah.
Can't help that, I know.
Yeah.
You want to put Monica's
Oh,
next.
sure, yeah. That's
Boxing names, I
fine.
have no idea.
All right, that's fine.
Let's go. We're ready. They're back.
Sure, yeah, just, yeah.
Okay.
No, that's fine.
Call the meeting to order.
Want me to say it? Can I say, can we come to order?
Yeah.
Okay, can we come to order, please? Take your seats, please. Can we come to order? Please, everyone take your seats.
While we're waiting just for some of the witnesses to come back, there was just something else I wanted to add to the record. As part of the pre-marked exhibits, J3 in evidence is a certification of Mike Tyson, which was signed on July 1st, I believe. And the only reason why that was submitted to the board was because it is our understanding that the board wanted to know of Mr. Tyson's relationship with Don King, and only because there's been some testimony about Mike disassociating himself with certain individuals in the past and formulating new management teams. Mike confirms that in a certification, and attached to that certification is a lawsuit wherein Mike has filed a suit in the United States District Court in the Southern District of New York, and that's a lawsuit against Don King. So we want the board to know that, in fact, there is no longer any tie between Mr. Tyson and Mr. King. And actually, we could continue along in this vein. Initially, we weren't sure if Dr. Tyson, that's Dr. Monica Tyson, who is Mrs. Tyson, we weren't sure if she was going to be able to be here today. She's in the middle of a pediatric residency, and she has young children who she cares for. Fortunately, however, she was able to come here. Because we didn't know if she was going to be here or not, we videotaped a sworn statement from her, and Dr. Tyson would prefer if we could show the statement as opposed to having her testify. With your permission, we'd like to do that. The statement was taken at her home. Unfortunately, we won't get the opportunity to show you the home and the warmth in that home, but it is a very warm home. They have beautiful children, and it's just a very, it's as much a warm American home as you could ever hope to see, and we tried to capture some of that on the video. So with your permission, I'd like to begin that. Could you play that, please? Yes, my name is Raymond Redden. I'm an attorney from New Jersey, and I represent Mike Tyson in connection with his application for a New Jersey boxer's license before the New Jersey State Athletic Commission. We're here today to take a sworn statement from Dr. Tyson, who is Mike Tyson's wife. In the event that she's unable to attend Wednesday's hearing, we wanted to videotape her testimony for the benefit of the board. With that in mind, I would ask you to kindly swear the witness so that we could begin.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, could you kindly state your name for the record?
Monica Teresa Tyson.
And you are Dr. Tyson, am I correct? How old are you, Dr. Tyson?
32.
Okay, just for the record, we were going to try to take Dr. Tyson's statement with the children present. However, the little guy was starting to get a little rambunctious, so we decided to go on without them. Am I correct, Dr. Tyson?
Yes, that's right. Call me Monica.
Okay, I'll call you Monica. Could you identify and introduce your children who are no longer on screen just to the board?
Yes, our youngest son is Amir, and he is 11 and a half months, and he'll be a year and 2 weeks. Raina is 2 and a half, and we have 2 older daughters, Gina, who is 9 years old, and Mikey, who is 8 years old.
Could you tell us your educational background, please?
Yes, I graduated college at the University of Virginia and medical school at Georgetown University.
And I believe you're presently doing a residency in pediatrics?
Yes, I am, at Georgetown.
Now, your primary residence is in Bethesda, correct?
Yes, here in Bethesda.
Do you also maintain with your family a New Jersey residence?
Yes, we do.
When were you and Mike married?
We got married in April of '97.
Since that time, would it be fair to say that you have been an integral part of Mike's life?
Yes.
Do you believe that you're competent to assess Mike's character and his qualities?
Yes.
Could you kindly describe him as a husband?
He's a very good husband. He's compassionate and he's loving. He's protective. I guess the best part of our relationship is we're both really in love with each other, but we're best friends. So that's the best part of it.
I'm sorry, how would you describe Mike as a father?
Oh, he's an awesome father. He loves his kids, and his kids just adore him. My 2-year-old mimics everything he does. She tries to walk like him, talk like him. She tries to do everything like him. And he has fun with them. Because he's boxing and he's training a lot, usually he's out of town a lot. So, but this year he's got to spend a lot of time with them. And when he is here, he takes them to the park and the jeepers. He takes them to school, and he really enjoys it. And this year he had the opportunity to do that.
Have you seen Mike interact with his friends?
Yes.
How would you describe Mike as a friend?
I think he's a very good friend. He's always concerned about somebody else's problem is his problem if they're his friend. You know, he's really loyal to them, and he's always concerned about how they're doing and that kind of thing. And once he's your friend, he is your friend. You know, he's very loyal to that.
How has Mike treated his fans when he's been in your company?
Oh, he's great with them, especially children. We could be eating or driving with the kids or wherever. If he sees children, he stops whatever he's doing, no matter what kind of day he's having, and he signs autographs, he takes pictures, he talks to the kids, and he's really, really good about that. The adults too, but especially the kids.
Is Mike a charitable individual? Could you describe some of the charitable things he's done in the past?
Oh yeah, he likes to get a group of kids, take them out, you know, to parks or to eat, and he goes to hospitals. He really, his main enjoyment is to work with the handicapped and the mentally challenged children. He really enjoys that, and he's done that quite a few times.
I'm going to ask you to comment on some of Mike's qualities, and for the moment I'd ask you to consider some things such as honesty, integrity, responsibility, and I'd like your opinion of Mike's qualities in those regard. Could you first tell us what your opinion is of Mike from a standpoint of honesty?
Yeah, he's very honest. Sometimes he's brutally honest, which sometimes might get him in trouble because people can't handle the fact of how honest he is. But just for an example, he made a promise to Customato before he died that he would take care of Camille, and he's kept that promise ever since then. He treats her like his mom, and he's really, really, really good to her, and he does that because he made that promise to Cus.
From a standpoint of integrity, do you have an opinion as to Mike's integrity?
Yeah, just this year is a good example. With the boxing, the year that he's been off, he lived up to the rules of keeping the year off requirement, and he had people coming at him from overseas wanting him to do this and do that and box here and box there, but he had no intention of doing that. He said that he wanted to do it the right way, so he stayed off the year and he just waited and he did what he was supposed to do.
Have you and Mike ever discussed the incident which led to his revocation out in Nevada?
Yes, and he is very remorseful for it. He apologized. He reached out to Evander, and he's really sorry for what happened. And he's ready to just move on and, you know, continue to box.
Okay, from a standpoint of responsibility, do you have an opinion as to Mike in terms of being a responsible individual or not?
Yeah, he just in a family sense, he's just always there for us, and we can rely on him no matter how, you know, things are going. I mean, he's going through a lot this year, but we can always depend on him. He's reliable, he's responsible to us. And just in terms of boxing, you know, his boxing is his passion. He really, really has missed it this year. But you know, he wanted to live up to the rules. He went to therapy, he apologized, and he really was sorry. So I think that was another example of really being responsible.
What is your overall opinion of Mike's character?
Oh, I think he's a great person. He has a huge heart. He's really loving, and he's a good husband, good father, and I think an all-around good person.
Now, you are, of course, familiar with the fact that Mike has applied for a boxer's license and that there will be a hearing before the New Jersey Athletic Commission, are you not?
Yeah.
And in fact, the reason we're videotaping you today is because of your studies and your family responsibilities. There is a chance you may not be able to make that hearing. Am I correct?
Yes.
And with that in mind, however, did you want to convey any sentiments to the board as to your thoughts regarding whether or not the New Jersey Boxing Board should issue a boxer's license to Mike?
Yeah, I definitely think he should be issued a license. You know, boxing is, like I said before, his passion, and he really, really, really misses it. He's ready to go back, you know, and I see it in him that he's ready. He's been training, and he's really excited about it. And it just so happens that he really loves Atlantic City, and he has a lot of fans there, and it just happened to be that he's applying for a license in Atlantic City. So I definitely think he lived up to his responsibilities, and he's ready to come back. And I think he needs boxing, and I think boxing needs him. And I think it would be a great idea if they gave him a license in Atlantic City.
Okay, thank you for your time, Monica.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to also incorporate into the record, Mrs. Tyson made reference to the fact that the family, Mike and his family, have established a New Jersey residence. And as part of the exhibits that we submitted to you, we have J4 and J5. J4 is an official New Jersey residency card. J5 is a certification from the Passaic County Clerk, Ronnie Knockomson, wherein she certifies that Mike meets all of the requirements to have established a residency in New Jersey. And I'd ask the board, of course, to consider that. The other points were Mrs. Tyson, Dr. Tyson indicated that Mike had gone through therapy. We submitted the report to you of a Dr. Richard Goldberg and a Dr. Bert Rotman. Dr. Rotman is here today. He'll testify later in the proceedings. And lastly, I believe that Dr. Tyson indicated that Mike had reached out personally to Evander Holyfield. And if you look at the exhibits, J13 is a letter response from Mr. Holyfield.
Mr. Redwell, I'm not sure that Mr. Haas has any questions for Dr. Tyson on behalf of the board, and he'll indicate in a minute that given that Dr. Tyson is present, would she be available for
Absolutely.
such questions?
If you have questions,
We don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Well, I was going to read that during the testimony as well.
All right. This is the, so that the rest of the people and present will know, this is a letter, copy of a letter. It's from Evander Holyfield in Atlanta, Georgia, and it's very brief, and it's regarding Mike Tyson, to whom it may concern. Please be advised that I have no objection to Mr. Tyson's application for a boxing license in the state of New Jersey. I feel Mr. Tyson has been sufficiently penalized over the past 1 year. Very truly yours, Evander Holyfield.
Do we have a date on that letter?
You know what? He didn't date it.
Unfortunately, it's not dated.
But it's dated inferentially because of the fact that he knew of the license and its application. It's referred in there.
Okay, our next witness is Mohammed Siddiq. He will affirm. He will affirm. Okay, could you state your name for the record, please?
Mohammed Sadiq,
And where are you from, Mr. Siddiq?
Indianapolis, Indiana.
What is your occupation?
I'm a biologist and school teacher.
Okay, do you know Mike Tyson?
Yes, sir.
For how long have you known Mike Tyson?
I've known Mike now for nearly 7 years.
What is your relationship with Mike Tyson?
Mike Tyson is a Muslim brother of mine, a friend, and someone I love and honor and respect.
And in fact, does he consider you his spiritual advisor?
Well, it's hard for me to say that he does consider me that. I would hope, by the help of God, that he does. We relate to each other in a very warm and spiritual and friendly way.
All right. Now, do you have an opinion regarding Mike's character?
I would like to share a statement with you if I could.
If you'd feel more comfortable doing that, by all means, you could read your statement into the record.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Sadiq, would you speak directly into the mic, please?
Yes, sir.
It's very important that everybody hear you.
Yes, sir. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم seeking refuge with God from Satan, the rejected enemy. With the name Allah, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. To the Honorable President of this most distinguished commission, Mr. Larry Hazard, and to you, his fellow commissioners, and to the distinguished audience, who too are quite honorable. May God's peace be on all of you. First of all, I would like to thank you for permitting me this opportunity to speak to you, to appeal to your conscience, to your heart, to your sense of fairness and justice on behalf of my brother and my friend, the people's champ, Mike Tyson. Dear Honorable Commissioners, it is not my intent to attempt to introduce to you a man, a face, or a personality that would be noticed, known, and recognized equally in the ghettos of America or by the Emperor of China. There would be no mistaking this vibrant spirit, this massive muscle, this valiant warrior, identifiable to most throughout this world. So that is not my mission. My mission or purpose is to appeal to you to reach beyond the flesh, to reach beyond 200 plus pounds of muscles and bone, and to see with a sense of spiritual insight, if I may, the essence of a very, very good person. A person who may from time to time, as we all tend to do, wander off the straight path. My prayer is that you will see the human value in lighting a candle in the life of one of the most promising young athletes in our time, as opposed to cursing the darkness of his unwise, unacceptable, momentary, spontaneous deed over 1 year ago in another part of our country. One of the very first and most harsh critics of this unfortunate incident came from none other than Mike Tyson himself. And he, without a moment's hesitation, placed himself before the bar of justice and accepted the prescribed penalty meted out to him by those in authority. But nowhere in this land, nowhere in this world, or in the history of God's universe is it required of any individual to suffer perpetually or to be punished eternally for a single incident of poor judgment. While his public record boasts of literally thousands of positive examples of true and model sportsmanship. Dear Honorable Commissioners, I trust your judgment. I trust your sense of fairness. I trust your willingness to be just. And it is to that sense of justice and fairness that I appeal to you to give Mike Tyson a chance to fulfill his God-given talent in the field of boxing. Give him an opportunity to provide for his wife as he has provided in the past. Give him a chance to feed, to clothe, and educate his innocent little children, to watch over and maintain his adopted mother and brothers, to continue buying wheelchairs, crutches, and prostheses for the handicapped, giving scholarships and financial aid for our promising young minds, putting milk and bread on the tables and in the homes that never see the presence of a provider, making opportunity and giving hope for young, aspiring, unknown kids in the bowels of hell, helping literally hundreds of needy people, known and unknown, and meanwhile, threatening those of us close to him and knowledgeable of these acts of kindness if we dare attempt to publicize or make public his charitable deeds. I think the late playwright Lorraine Hansberry put it best while addressing the terrible conditions that many African American men experienced in the ghettos of America. When you measure a man, measure the valley, but measure the hill. Measure the valley, but don't forget, measure the hill. Dear people, Mike has paid for his mistake. Now let him rise in the service of his Lord to pursue the talents that Almighty God has given him. You won't regret it. Give him a chance. He will make you proud that you look to the best of God's creation. Light the candle. Trust that innate good that the Creator has put abundantly in all of his creation. Trust that power that is alive and well and working in Mike Tyson. Trust what is right and what is just. I thank you so very much for permitting these few moments, and may Almighty God Allah watch over each one of you as you make the right decision. Give Mike Tyson a chance to practice the profession that God has made him the best in. Thank you.
I just have 3 other questions, if I may, just to meet the requirements of the statute, Mr. Siddiq. Do you have an opinion as to Mike Tyson on the issue of honesty?
Yes, I do.
And what is that opinion?
I think Mike is tremendously honest. Very, very honest and sincere. In fact, what a lot of people look to as perhaps is his downfall is what I think is his strongest attribute, and that's his honesty. Mike will tell you the truth about yourself, about him, what he thinks, and he tells it to you not trying to hurt you, but he tells it unedited. So he's very honest.
And do you have an opinion about Mike as to the issue of integrity?
He has great integrity as a person.
And
I tell him over and over, I believe that boxing is just a preparation for a greater calling that God has for him. And I believe that in my heart. I believe God is calling him to, this is just a preparation. I see Mike solving many of the world's problems using what God has given him.
you made reference to some of the charitable things that Mike does. Am I correct in your statement?
Yes.
Does Mike seek publicity? Does he ask for people to recognize or acknowledge when he does things of a charitable nature?
To the contrary. When Mike does things that are charitable, you almost have to fight. Mike won't let you tell people what he does for people. Mike has helped so many. It reminds me of the scripture, how Christ was given some money. They said before he got out of the gates of Jerusalem, he was broke. And I thought of Mike and smiled. It's the same way. Mike, he may have made millions, but I guarantee you, if he has nothing, 90% of that is gone to helping people all over this country. All over, black, white, Chinese, Puerto Rican, Hispanic. Mike helps the world. And I believe God is always going to bless Mike because of his sincere heart and his dedicated spirit.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
I thank you.
Mr. Siddiq, do you currently teach junior high school in Indianapolis?
Currently, I was teaching at Martin University, teaching science at Martin University. I haven't taught at the junior high for about 2 years, but I'm licensed to teach junior high.
Is that your job at the university? Is that a full-time job during the school year?
No, I was just teaching in the summer program, and I've taught at college level, high school level, junior high level, and I've administrated, yes, sir.
And you were also a volunteer at the Indiana Youth Center, is that correct?
This is correct.
And that's in Plainfield, Indiana?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
How do you perform that volunteer work throughout the year?
I perform volunteer work in the institutions throughout this country when needed and as requested.
Do you know how many hours a week on average you might spend doing that kind of volunteer work?
Well, when you come as needed, and you don't get in there as often as you would like, but when Mike was there, I spent quite a bit of time in there because I was classified as a spiritual advisor.
Okay. Were you classified as a spiritual advisor to any other inmates at that time?
Not at, you couldn't have but one at the time at Plainfield.
Are you involved with the operation of the Islamic Center of North America?
ISNA? Yes, sir. In fact, I have to get back for the wedding of the director, Secretary General.
Is that a full-time job for you too?
No, sir. Well, Islam is a full-time job
Right.
for me, but working with